since we quit and restarted, right?
Okay, is everybody okay with us recording it? We may take a little sample and put it on the HarvestWorks website.
Yeah,
Go to that. Okay.
no problem.
Okay, so I'm going to introduce, welcome to the HarvestWorks live streaming event series. My name is Carol Parkinson. I'm the director of our nonprofit Digital Media Arts Center in New York City. Our collaboration with Experimental Intermedia continues with our second Zoom In OLAP, also known as our online live art performance community discussion forum. For this event, we've invited artists Julian Otavi and Jenny Pickett of APO 33, an interdisciplinary artistic laboratory based in Nantes, France. They are extremely active within the FLOSS, which is the free Libre open source software community of artists and programmers. Today, they'll share their experiences with Audio Blast, the first online live audio festival that they founded in 2012, and also other projects. Following the presentation by Julian and Jenny and a question and answer period from you, the participants, the forum will be open to anyone wanting to discuss online live art performance ideas or projects, as well as any technical or conceptual concern. The discussion forum will be led by Catherine Librovskaya of Experimental Intermedia. She is an intermedia artist and curator who will now introduce the presenting artist. Thank you.
Thank you.
So yeah, welcome. And I guess also just introduce a little bit of the idea of OLAP was created just because we felt a need that now that COVID continues, I think online performance is here to stay for a while, or at least hybrid performance. And a lot of people around us are getting very tired of kind of the most basic forms of online performance, where people just turn on Zoom and don't even think about the lighting and play a piece or recite something. So this is kind of just to rethink different ways of approaching online performance that could be more captivating, more engaging for the audience, because it might be all we have for a while. Now we have new strands of emerging of COVID and stuff. So, and so without further ado, I want to introduce Jenny Pickett and Julian Otavi of APO 33, which is a nonprofit arts organization in Nantes, France, which is the northwest of France. Which has been around for quite a while. And they early on have been doing a lot of online events, live online events, even before the pandemic. So, and they're also, as Carol mentioned in the beginning, extremely active. I mean, they're only active in the free and open source community. So all of these events they've been doing for years, and the Audio Blast Festival is not the only live online event, are all done with absolutely free and mostly open source tools. So without further ado, I introduce them, and they can also maybe better introduce their organization. And the organization is a media art organization, so I guess, but maybe even more than that.
Thank you, Catherine, and thank you, Carol. Julian's going to start by talking a bit about the history of APO in terms of using free software tools, but also servers. And I'm going to show the presentation on free software because I haven't had time to export it properly. Okay, I'm just going to share the screen. Okay, you can see, are we seeing what you're seeing?
Yes, looks good.
Okay.
And perhaps for whoever isn't muted, it would be a good idea to mute yourselves so that in case there's dogs, birds, children in the background, they wouldn't interfere.
Might be our children.
Okay. Cool. Okay, so we're going to start with speaking about the use of servers for independence in arts and streaming. So, Julien, over to you, 'cause you're the expert on this.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll time our different parts, so we could have an exchange with you. Basically, IPv33 has been founded in 1997, and it was to organize experimental music and performance and live cinema. And then so at first we were just diffusing, showing other people's works, until we decide 2000 to go in depth with our research and show more of our works and cross between the artists we invited and what we were doing. So I'm not going into that part, but I will jump directly to the questions of how the streaming and how the practice of live performance and installations and streaming occurred for us. So actually, it's very important linked to the tools we use, because before 2002, we use Macintosh, Max MSP, Pro Tools, us to the tools by simply ask. Most of us were pirating software. Why do you pirate the software when they are available for free? And so we were wondering, yes, you're right, why are we doing this? And then we jump into the free software, but not only the free software as an operating system, but also with the server IDs. What was behind the server IDs is that we were able to do our own website, distribute our own website, but also in 2002, set up our own streaming personal server. This is where it all started. And then as artists, we jump into it and we started to use it for multiple performance between spaces. So we wanted, so this is
So there's one more thing if you want to do. We don't have to do it today, and that is
okay.
See if we
Sorry, I've heard some voice. Sorry, it was a question. Come back. This schematic you see, it's very simple. No, sorry, it's not simple. It's the different venues, different places in people's home and or concerts or a cultural venue that were together linked through streaming and but also ground the sound and being able to control with the OSC and
Excuse me a second. Someone is not muted, and so we're getting an echo because we're hearing the sound of the presenters plus.
Walter, can you mute yourself?
that sounds better. I know. Okay. It's still the echo. But
Hans, you can mute yourself on the lower left-hand corner.
It's Phil.
It says mute and start video.
It's Phil who's not muted.
Phil, you haven't yet. Here we go. No,
Okay.
it's okay. It's okay. Yes. So the notion of the server, the streaming server, was really important. But also, as artists, we wanted to multiply as soon as we get into the streaming. It was not only to perform live on the internet. In fact, we didn't reach lots of audience on the internet at that time. But suddenly we wanted to multiply the whole geolocalization and be able to play in multiple places at once. So
where there was a physical audience.
Where there were a physical audience. So we were connecting the virtual and the physical straight on. Okay. So multiple places at once, performance with different venues and different artists. And this is also where we started in, so that was 2002. And around the same period, we started the Great Computer Orchestra with the same idea that we were able to centralize with the server and exchange audio file at that time before we started streaming. So we were sharing all the audio files that other artists were sending us and recreate an orchestra with only computers. And the idea is that from this music and program we were sharing, so mainly free software, we were also able to receive other people's stream and send it back and experiment. So we also started to work with the visualization of the networks as a sort of live cinema proposition. Then maybe the pulp. You have the pulp?
No.
Okay.
No, because that wasn't live.
Anyway, it's less because we also develop a lot of installations with the streaming and the between different places.
But here we've on this slideshow, it's concentrated on live performance projects.
Yes, we could come back on that installation aspect, because today the research is also not only live performance but continuous live performance. It's like permanent, like the Giazzo that we're gonna talk to you about later is the online orchestra only, because the Great Computer Orchestra was also physical in places. First concert was in the Art Museum of Nantes. But the Giazzo, the other project we're going to talk about, is mainly on the internet and for longer performance, like 4 hours or a few days. But this is a score I wrote for this idea of multiple space with the Chaos Lab, another project. We create chaos. And so the idea is that from space one, you send the sound of the space and what you're doing in the space to the space two. Space two is replaying your sound with whatever they add to it to the space three, and vice versa. And then people could listen the different mix or the round of the sound. So it's all about the streaming and the feedback of what we're experiencing now, this most of the people, but as multiple plays and the sound traveling around and being transformed, a bit like Alvin Lucier multiply in real time. I'm sitting in room, for example.
And also the Chaos Lab as this kind of research project, so it has multiple installation versions where people come physically and create variation and iteration on what other people are creating in the space with electronics or sound or video or anything. So it gets quite chaotic, but that's kind of like a live performance at the same time, because it's normally as an exhibition that's open to the public, and the public can interact with the Chaos Lab as it's creating the space. So, anyway.
So in 2005, we created the multi-musician online orchestra. It was audio only, and we're gonna come back to this. In 2011, we developed more the live cinema aspect within the performance, because at the beginning it was really hard to use the video because no one had really the networks. Now it's better, but back a few years ago, it was really hard for people to send video signal because they didn't have the connections. And so we used mainly audio to keep a good quality. What was really important also is to develop our own tools to keep the sound quality at a high level as possible for the audience and for ourselves. So it's still one of the reasons why we're developing our own software for orchestra, online orchestra, is to keep the quality of the audio.
And so when we're mixing video streams from multiple places for the Giazzo, for example, we are separating the sound and the image on different computers so that they're not actually interfering with one another directly.
So that's like on the image, you could see there is a multiple different experimentation of live cinema and then the spatializations, but also we were using some sort of visual poetry from the networks. So we were getting all the information of, we were sniffing the networks and we were visualizing it and transforming it into live visual poetry.
And Giazzo, we were doing a lot of these concerts at that time, online concerts, with lots of different musicians from across the world. And some people here might have even played with us. And it was this was kind of also the beginning of thinking about doing the Audio Blast Festival as well, because we were using more and more these streaming tools as the practice itself. We'll go
So
back to Audio Blast.
So that's the fact is that something very important before to talk about Audio Blast. It was not the first festival of that kind. There were another festival called No Music Festival. Maybe some of you have heard or have played in this festival. It was like a few years festival, and we participated a lot to this festival. And at some point they gave up. I don't know exactly why, but they disappeared and they stopped the whole project. And so I think they stopped it in 2006. And it's only like in 2012, almost like 6 years after that, we decided that this festival framework were missing into our own practice, but also to exchange with other musicians all around the globe, because not everyone is capable to tour, have the capacity to do it or wants to do it. We were also
having the funding to bring people,
or we didn't especially have the fundings to bring people over. So, and also there's this thinking about maybe when people tour is very male oriented, and then where you program on the internet festival, you could maybe touch more other people and women also that maybe have some other condition, and it's more difficult to tour. That's also thinking, bringing a different thinking about which artists you invite, and it's all call based, except this year and the first year, but we will explain why.
so what based?
It's call for
Call
proposal,
based.
call
Oh, right,
based.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So the Audio Blast Festival began in 2012 in November, and then the second one was in February 2014. And
Here's all the poster Jenny made. You could leave it there. That's so you could see all the artists, I think.
And so yeah, we were having quite a lot of artists each time, and we would concentrate the festival on 3 days. And in the beginning, the festival was very much
Going too fast.
Was it okay?
Go on. Leave it there.
In the beginning, the festival was very much orientated to listening online. So there wasn't really any visual aspect to think of in the live performance. It was really much more akin to radio in that way. However, we were streaming the performances or the information and the text chats into an exhibition space. And so the public could come and listen to the festival on big surround sound systems, and people could also compose for surround sound systems or perform with them even at distance. So we were working a lot with that aspect, and there was this physical aspect of a physical public, as well as the interaction online with the chat and the virtual public.
Well, the idea was to think about who is the audience for this kind of festival, and then we were thinking that maybe there is people with good sound systems at home, but maybe most of the people will have their computer speakers, which is really, I mean, not really ideal to listen better quality, and also where people working live. So we're opening the space with like proper sound systems, multiple sound systems, in order for some people, of course, is local, but then we start to exchange with other venues that were interested, for people to experience really the sound performance. Because it's not because it's online that you can't not have the experience of the different vibration, different sounds, infra bass and so on, and the different relation sounds. The home appliances listening is different from having like suddenly like a whole range of speakers with subwoofers. So that was the idea, is that people could experience that.
And we were also able to invite local musicians or musicians that were around to perform directly in the platform and stream that at the same time for those that were less technically minded.
Yeah. So here in these photos, for example, you could see people came also to experience. They have the real experience of, and then they were able to chat, because at that time it was, I mean, people were much more on the networks and so on, but in the last 5 years, it went really fast. But people didn't hear about IRC, which is a very old technology. IRC is one of the oldest internet relay chat, and we're still using it because it's secure and it's really fast, and you could host it on your own servers, and it's connected to lots of community, and it's outside of Facebooks and so on, sort of like multinational taking over whatever you say or whatever you write. It's really like a very old technology that still make you think about what is the network.
So a few years ago, we didn't want to repeat always exactly the same format when we were showing live streaming performances in the platform. So we started to experiment a lot more with installation-based performances and ways to diffuse the sound. So actually we're getting away from the big diffusion systems and into some stuff that becomes much more interactive and localized.
So because we've been working with radio since the early beginning, and the connections, in fact, what we said about the streaming at the beginning is that we created web radios. So for us, it was a way to get the radios to the internet and reach much more people. So we were doing pirate radio at the time, or working with local radios, but it was not satisfying because the medium was like localized. We were also working with AM radio and Citizen Band and so on for transmissions. But the internet brings something else that we missed in the other cases, is the possibility to do continuous streams, and also that everyone could do it and it could connect back and forward bi-directionally. And that is completely open the relation to it. But in Audio Blast, we bring back this relation to radio and transmission, physical transmission, from electromagnetic transmission to FM transmission, pirate FM transmission. Do you want to explain?
So this installation up here was using transmitters, 3 transmitters in the space that was sending the signal directly into huge sheets of aluminum foil. And those the visitors to the space were able to sort of move between the physical streams by pushing around these speakers that were sort of mobile and receiving using radio signal.
So they were able to mix the different signal by pushing the speakers around and the receivers. That was the idea, was to bring back the audience into the space and mix themselves physically with an object, because we were thinking about the fact that people were coming and listening and being quite passive in the space. So with that, they were able to be active in the mixing of the live performances.
And in the same way, with the collections of radios that we have also in APO 33, we wanted to also come back to connecting the Audio Blast with that aspect. So last year we set up three, because we have 3 transmitters. This is why
3 pirate FM transmitters.
So we were able to mix. We were able to send three different radio signals, transmissions into the space, and tune any radio to which ones that they were. So people could also amble around the space and listen to catch different elements of the streams. And you could also listen directly online, always to the festival. Mm. Voila. And so there were some performances in the space. There was always the chats as well. This was also in the same space. And last year we also did one night with another venue with live performances based on a call. So we had more local or physically musicians that were able to come to the space and play. And here we were. This was just before the COVID confinements. This was in February 2020, and we had already got into this idea that we wanted to stream more visual content, and were asking performers to think much more about their visual presence on the internet at this time as well. So it just happened to coincide with the confinement, which happened just after. So we were quite set up for the confinement.
There you go. So in March 2020, we just after the 8th editions of Audio Blast, we were forced into lockdown. And so
we decided that rather than stop all our activities, since we hadn't taken down all the stuff from Audio Blast Festival yet, we decided to just go further with that and invest in a video mixer and grab all the computers from Apo33 in order to to manage multiple streams and continue our activities. So in fact, we decided also to do a weekly concert called Filiation during the first part of the lockdown, and invited musicians to come and play, as well as hosting a bar during that time where we could show the work that people were doing, and in between chat with each other and socialize.
So Filiation, this series of concerts, they were not meant to be an internet at all.
No.
Yeah, because we've been working in the early days of 2000s on trying to change the venue aspect. And when musicians came, we were also inviting them to play in different space with streaming. But here we had a new issue that no one experienced, which where that everyone were locked down more or less, and so all the concerts we were imagining doing, we suddenly concentrated them into once a week, and we were opening a call for everyone to keep the sort of like relation to the live performance despite their situation. So we had multiple reactions of people refusing it. Mainly people were okay to experiment, frankly, but we had still like a little part of people that refused or were like, this is not my thing. And we had also developed a survey for people to tell us what they thought about their experience. And then it was interesting to see that you had some people that had revelations and had a lot of creativity with this and were really enjoying this, and some other were completely like rejecting it. It's the completely like extreme reaction. So here we could see Catherine and Phil.
And that was part of Drum and Percussion Madness, another festival that would have been either cancelled, or we didn't cancel it. We put it online, and we continue to support the community in that area.
So, for example, Drum and Percussion is like 3 days, and it's mainly percussionists and drummers. So it's something very physical. You see, it's very something it's very interesting to have the experience of it, and then bringing the drummers and the percussionists live on the internet changed something very interesting for a lot of the audience and the other musicians, is to see somehow very closed up how they were performing. So somehow it was about visually a drummer performance, because it's usually quite visually, even if it's like the most experimental, like we had Le Quanin, which he really displayed 2 camera on his big bass drum for those who know him, and then his relation with his hands, what you usually see on stage with a distance, and a sort of relations to the space, the mystery and all that. Suddenly you had like a whole visual, very intimate, like if you have your head into his drum. And that was also very interesting, because that's something most of the audience will never experience without this relation.
Okay, we'll go on quickly because I can see that we're
7 minutes. We're good.
7 minutes. Okay.
Okay.
So after the lockdown and before the second lockdown, we managed to get to Austria to play a performance live there. But the performance was originally conceived as a physical electronics music performance with DIY electronics and normally just that, actually. But the curators, which was Shu Li Cheng, wanted us to think about how we can connect our performance to the internet, because the public wouldn't be able to attend in great numbers. So there would be a very limited amount of public in the space. and because of that, they wanted us to think about how we would connect this performance online. So, in fact, what we did was we decided to, instead of just streaming what we were doing, we decided to create a few devices in order for other musicians and the public, if they were so inclined, to interfere in our performance directly. So, and also the Ghiazo. So we also had the Ghiazo.
At some point we had the orchestra joining in, yeah.
Yeah, so we had the main performance space here with these DIY synthesizers that also work through short circuits and connectivity, direct networking, that were being, the sound of these were being interfered with, where? Here?
Yeah, Bluetooth PD patch.
Here through either telephone apps in the space. So we had created 11 apps. They all had one
neuron. It's because we
utility.
This project is about the jellyfish, and it's you could show it.
Here we go.
So we create DIY synth jellyfish sculpture, and we've been researching and developing the relation to the instrument, but also to the being itself, which is like still not understood by scientists, because they are one neuron organism.
And this was something that quite intrigued us, because we worked quite a lot with the EEG stuff before, and so working with the different electromagnetics and brain scanning, the idea of an organism working on one neuron, we started to think about how do we make instruments that also work in a similar way.
It's because they don't know, basically they don't know how this one neuron organisms could synchronize and go into different parts of the world, and sometimes shut down the whole fishing industry, and sometimes also shut down power plants. So they can't just figure out why one neuron, very old, the old one of the ancient, 60 million years, one neuron organism could interfere with human activities. So in fact,
and the way that they communicate, and they're kind of like a networked organism. So they tend to always move together, and no one really understands how they move together or why or in which way that they're communicating.
So that's why if you come back to the schematics, it's somehow a relation between our performance and the interference of all these people over the web, of the internet, artists or the public, that will interfere with our performance and change the course of the compositions that we will have a thought about within the space.
They had been asked to use telepathy as an interplay of many minds to produce a unity of thought, which is powerful enough to be recognized by the brain. So we asked people to try and connect with us telepathically so that the music would move as one. Didn't entirely work that way, but it was fun.
Okay. Then the next.
So voilà, these are the next experiments we've been doing, where we're not having the use of space. We're in another confinement. So we started to think about how we could make visuals that wouldn't just be us, the performers, performing online, but how to make it slightly more interesting and play with the digital space a little bit more. Julian made this patch based on the idea of creating a universe within a universe. Do you want to talk about?
Well, I mean, no, I mean, it's simply like a relation to cosmos, and visualize the relation to planets and the sounds changing it, but with cameras, and taking, instead of having Zoom or any Jitsi or any other systems, we will have like this cosmos that will take different angle from the visuals, but also change the way people perceive the live performance on internet.
So this one was performed also at Catherine and Phil's place in December. Voila.
And yeah, go on.
To end the year, we wanted to connect also again much more with nature, and so in December we decided to use the opportunity to where we were allowed to go more than 1 kilometer from our house, to picnic with electronics and stream directly onto the internet what we were doing. So
So the idea was to recreate travels and change the venue itself and transmit on the internet, and then sort of like play with the outside venue versus the lockdown venue versus the home venue. So we will not play anymore in the studio, but we will play in some beautiful place. This is in Marseille, in the Calanque, and this is the Mont Victoire of a famous Cézanne mountain. And so recreate some kind of other relations to live streaming. And then I think to finish this talk, we now are going to enter the new Audio Blast version 9 with a whole set of different artists
and partners.
So we work with this year with P-Node, which is a internet radio, multiple streams in Paris,
and digital
digital radio,
radio.
and DAB, digital radio, and Artzoid Studio. And I curate the festival with Casper Toplitz. I'm sure maybe you know who he is. Composer, French, Polish, living in Paris. Well, I just wanted to finish with this. What is the interesting from a year difference between the Audio Blast before the COVID-19 lockdown and after a year of experimentation and everyone coming up on the internet, is that this Audio Blast is really strange for us because there's more demand to participate, and it's really great. And then the relation to the streaming is then like putting questions whether what's the image you're giving to people as a musician, what's the image as artist. And so therefore there's a struggle between people that are used to have a certain image of themselves playing concerts, and they want to give that image the best as possible, and the difficulties to do it, and therefore not doing live streaming because of the fear of the live streaming, and then proposing videos already made of the performance to control the way they look on the internet. And this is something really that we never really experienced before in Audio Blast, because the main things with Audio Blast was to try to play live on the internet. That was also a challenge, and also creating difficulties in the performance and maybe something else. But here today we see the switch between the musicians are more professional in classical venue concerts and the internet and the relation between two. So it's going to be a very interesting festival and seeing this approach. And there's going to be a conference and then discussion with the people anyway. So it's great. Here we go.
Any questions?
Yeah, we've done 32 minutes.
Yeah, so let's open up to questions. Maybe you could unshare your screen.
Yeah.
Okay. How do I do that? Okay.
All right. Yeah, and just to kick off the discussion, yeah, that's very interesting, because when we had our first ever virtual December series, a lot of the people wanted to pre-record, and now we actually write to people that we would like it to at least look live. So I mean, some people wanted to pre-record because they have bad internet, but
Yeah, of course,
we kind of found more interesting the ones who pre-recorded, just maybe with their Zoom thing, but with a stable signal. But I find, for me personally, I love the challenge, and I love seeing the challenge of going on live and with all the problems we may have. And that's why also our previous guests were John King, who's attending now, with or is he gone? Maybe he's gone. It doesn't matter. With Brandon Calloway's, because all of their performances are entirely live. So yeah. So anyone who has any questions, please jump in. Oh, and you said you would mention why you always do a call, and you didn't talk about it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. Because it was interesting not to curate, to also bring people, discover new people, and give chance to much more people to join. This year we're curating because we do this partnership with Artzoid Studios, which is then you compromise when you do a partnerships, and then you also have to work with a different relation, which is also interesting. But the call was really is something important for bringing new people, really, and give it a chance.
Discovering people and the people discovering each other as well. We met many people from across the world this way, doing really interesting things. So it's always been quite interesting, the call.
And it's something to add just before taking more questions, but it's only recently that we started to pay people. So now this is also an interesting question, is because how you pay people when they play on internet. So now this question is very hot, okay? But a few years ago, it was not at all, because people thought that's just experimentation, extra, is funny, but are you gonna pay people? So, but we started to think a few years ago about how we could pay people and how much would be the rate based on call, based on the low budget and everything, and also on the fact that it's not a custom to pay people pay on the internet. But now it became a real question, and that's we somehow prepare that to think, because some people tell us how you pay a lot. So on the first lockdown, we didn't pay people because we didn't have the budget, and it came suddenly. But then more and more people start to think about this, and we also start to think that we should pay the artists because they're not going to have anything else, no other concerts. So
we were paying Audio Blast for a few years.
Yeah,
but it was something that was more symbolic rather than something that was going to support the livelihood of an artist. Because before last year, COVID issues, people were making their art careers not on internet performances particularly, but on the physical.
or very few.
Yeah, very few.
But now what's happening is, especially people who've moved from physical space to virtual space, I know that to quite a few of them, it's much more work to prepare a live online concert than it would be to come play in a space. So I really feel like, yeah, we should pay them as much as possible, because some of them like really prepare a long time in figuring out all the things and how to not get the feedback and not get the echo, and it's crazy.
But it's also the only venues that are open at the moment.
Yeah.
Also, if you record something, then you can use it again and again.
Yeah.
That depends on the artist.
You mean on the artist side, Michael, or on the side?
Well, it's just an issue that you have to resolve, whether you're going to record it and whether who owns that recording then, and how is it used, and that kind of thing. Which I guess is always the case with live performance.
Yeah, we recorded all our concerts, but with the permission of the performers.
I had a question about when you talk about streaming, you talk mostly about basically putting a microphone in the room, right? And streaming the audio. So it's an audio stream?
No, I mean, no, we really thought about the different ways of doing streaming. So we developed software that will take whatever software you use on your machine and then take the out of your software and streaming. So it goes from the mic and the space to whatever you use as device, or whatever is coming out of your mixer. So it's whatever the artist, whatever we imagine the audio coming from, you know.
Well, in fact, we developed a software called iStream many years ago for the Giazzo project in order to mix multiple streams, because it was very complicated to do that at the time. So, but I mean, I think there's other software that does it now, but
no, there's still no software, and we still have to update. We thought we're gonna be finding that, but actually we don't really. It's in order to have a very high quality, very simple, easy to use, to be able to do an orchestra online and be able to mix and have view meters and sending back live streaming the result, the mixing of the different musician.
So that's available on SourceForge called iStream.
Is that a client a server client software that you're talking about?
Yeah.
Is that what it
Yeah,
is?
It's even three. It's like server, clients, and receiver.
So there's development of sort of like software instruments that the receiver could download, and that all you would need is sort of a control signal over the internet rather than a stream, like a high band stream. All you would need to basically would be like MIDI, and the receiver, the listener, would have this software, and it would be performed on the listener's computer, like an instrument, that has lots of different receivers, but the actual data communicated over the internet is very light. It's just controller. Is there a lot of development of that kind of thing?
Yeah, the streaming software is really for audio and for the artist, and then we developed other tools for intercommunication between the artists. So we use OSC protocol, Open Sound Control, which is like MIDI but over the networks. And this is more like the internal cooking between the musicians, and it refers to a long history of MIDI control over the internet. And then data control. It's something we've done the early days because, like you say, it's easier for any bandwidth. The audio was the idea that we could bring up the quality to 512 kilobits per second, for example, or even more, depending people's bandwidth. And then the audience, they don't have to download this software.
They just have to click the link to listen.
Yeah, it's like a basic.
It's like a radio for them.
Yeah,
no, I understand that. I'm just wondering if there are these other types of ways of listening that also, where the listener herself has that software, and
I mean, actually,
Of course, you could do that. Yeah.
With an installation project that we've been doing for many years called The Bot, and it exists in various forms, but also on the internet, we created a pure data patch that anybody could download in order to manipulate how they were listening to it. So the bot was also something that was taking many sounds from different spaces and recomposing them in a more sort of AI kind of way. But those different parameters, you were able to download this patch and remix those parameters yourself as a listener. And so we had other artists using that software in their installations and reprogramming the bot in different ways.
Cool, thank you.
But yeah, so it's an interesting question to think about, more audience control over over how they hear the stuff.
Well, also, I mean, it just, for me, it's like, how is music evolving in this way? I mean, people play live, but like you said, some people want to control things more. But also, have you noticed a general evolution in like the structure of music, or the kind of forms that the music is taking over these years of the festival, that people are sort of using more, open forms perhaps, or interactive forms rather than more determined form? Have you noticed any evolution of the actual structure of the music being performed in this online way?
Actually, it's a very interesting question, because you had the main most of the people will come as any gig, and it still is. They will come and it's like they play their music and that's it. It's fine. It's all cool. And then they do their 1 hour. We try and push people to have 1 hour, and then they goes, and then it was a great gig, and nothing different from if you invite them. But what we've seen is that a part of the community, some people were like intrigued by this way of doing, and so they were somehow applying every year. And so we find that there is some people that were like, I want to do this every year as a part of my practice. And then bit by bit, they changed their way of presenting the music, the way they structure the sound and the compositions. And then we've seen a slow evolution. It's not like something, because it's not every week or every month. So they were practicing every year, let's say. And so And so we've seen some people really getting on as part of like their main activities, almost like if they were excited by this way of showing their music rather than the classical way in a venue. And that is something that we've seen happening. Not the majority though, it's just a little part of people.
But
There has always been the interactive chat element in the festival as well. So the public can chat directly to the musicians. And so if the musicians are working on their computers and they're able not to, during the performance, if they're able to, they can also talk to the audience at the same time, but mostly they do it afterwards. But that's, I think, has also been something that's been quite different from a normal concert, that you have this huge interaction between the directly with the public.
But for example, at a conference I attended in November, that's Sarah Weaver's conference, Now Net Arts, Network Arts, and there were many panels where people have talked about how they've adapted this. Who usually teach ensemble music, and so they were talking about all the different ways they've adapted to still being able to do ensemble music with the latency of sound, and so how they've like studied particular forms where you know, like latency works with, etc. And so the results, so for some people they've made like amazing discoveries, you know, and then there's always that class of people who say, oh, this is so frustrating, when can we get back to normal in-person space playing? But I think all the most interesting stuff is on the online live art presentation, is people who embrace what's there and the situation and the conditions. But
I've been wondering whether it will also affect live performance in physical space afterwards, what people have been doing with their online performance. I'm wondering how that will sort of feed back into the way people present their work, so in the future as well. Yeah?
Mm.
well, for me it has a lot, but I gotta just tell everyone, so you're all muted, but anyone who wants to ask any question, just unmute your microphone, which is on the left bottom corner of your window, in case you don't know, and jump in with a question if you have any questions. Okay, I have a question. You talked about that you were using for I guess chat or text, like some very old system. I didn't really get that part. You said that in the earlier Audio Blast festivals. Oh.
I think that was the IRC. Is it IRSC or the old?
Yeah, but I think something happened to Jenny Pickett. They look like they've frozen. Uh-oh. Our guests have frozen. I know they're doing it from home and they don't have the best. I think we lost them. Oh my God.
No, they're back. They're back.
Oh, there they are. Okay.
Yes.
We lost you for a second.
I think they had to restart. They probably had to restart.
Yeah, we don't hear them. So any other, while they restart, any other comments or questions? All right, well,
what would be the best way to stream live from a Max patch or a PD patch? Is there a particular piece of software that you recommend?
We don't have their sound.
Or anyone, I'm sure.
Oh, okay.
People have done that. You know, just like directly from Max, have this object that goes right to the internet, and full bandwidth, good quality.
Well, right now there's a lot of research with Jack Tripp.
Jack Tripp.
But it's not quite. Now they're developing. Last time someone came who was saying that they're at Stanford, they're developing something that's going to be like an all-in-one deal, because for now it's like you need to be connected to a server, and it's like you need to activate terminal, and then there's something called QJack trip. So they're trying to centralize it.
You know what, Michael, I posted all those resources that came out of the first OLAP. They're on the HarvestWorks webpage.
Okay.
Under the John King webpage, OLAP 1. So if you scroll down to the bottom of the post that's OLAP 1, you'll find like several resources that came out of the technical resources that came out of the discussion last time. They're very good.
Okay, we're back. We could hear you now. We had a little experience with the.
Good.
Here we go. Sorry, what was your question?
My question's been answered. So.
All
no,
right.
but maybe they have a different answer.
We stopped to be with you from Catherine question.
Yeah, Michael, maybe you want to re-ask it because.
Well, my question was, what if I wanted to stream directly out of PD or Max? What would you recommend? Like, preferably wireless, but if it has to be through a wire, then, and like really high quality audio streaming directly from Max MSP.
But this is multi-stream, right, Michael? Just not.
No, it's because stereo. I mean, stereo is multi, I guess, but 2 channels would be fine.
Yes, we've been advising multi-platform software called BUT, and in between BUT, there is different way to do it.
BUTT.
Yeah, like a BUT.
Everybody's got a big butt. Is that
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, don't record. Oh my God.
That's actually a new one. That's really a new one, because at the last meeting we came up with 4 or 5 resources for online streaming, but this is new. I appreciate that.
I think.
Yeah, it's. It's
free one. It's free.
It's free. I think it's on SourceForge, and it's been used a lot in the open source world for many, many years.
Yeah, it exists. Your microphone is cut, Carol. Just to tell you. But no, yeah, it exists since a long time, and but. It's very useful if you connect, Michael, with software like Jack or Soundflower on the Mac and something else on PC, Windows, because you need something to interconnect the sound and the in and out of your software. And so Jack is multi-platform. It works on Mac.
Is it
Jack D server. It's been developed under Linux for many years, but now it's multi-platform. And I think on Mac there is something similar called Soundflower. Some people might know.
Sonobus, I think. No.
Yeah, there's different things to connect. That Carol, we can't hear you. I mean, if you maybe.
I don't have any comments.
Oh, all right. Okay.
And if nobody else has any other questions, I wanted you to talk more about your jellyfish project, like what actually happens in that project. It was really beautiful.
Hello.
Talk, just talk.
What actually happens is the actual instruments work with touch.
Maybe you could show a video. Have a video?
I don't know.
A quick extract.
Maybe. So it also is quite sensitive to the moisture in your hands, the instrument. So hello. You try and find the thing.
Talk.
So basically, what we're playing with is electronic circuits that we're using the copper wires to connect through our bodies in order to change basically the oscillators and the frequencies. And this also is dependent on, you should do that one.
This one?
Yeah, that's the Shuli one, I think. It's pretty cool.
No.
So you can change the kind of sounds that are happening with that, and also if you touch each other, and also the way that you touch the different cables that are hanging down.
So are the
Yeah.
oscillators in the actual jellyfish, or is the
They're-
jellyfish like a receiver on the oscillators or somewhere off stage?
Yeah, do you want to show? Yes, there is a
Go and get one from downstairs.
there's a DIY synth that we made ourselves, a circuit that will react on a short circuit. So it's basically it's a chip, and it's you meant to do a keyboard with it, the basis, but we developed it that we short circuit, and with the electricity of the body, we changed the pitch. What are you doing? It's on the
There's a
internet.
video.
Oh, okay. It's on.
You have to share the screen if you
Yeah,
want.
share the
to
screen.
Oh, is that what you want me
Yeah.
to do?
Yes, it's just to show them like 1 minute.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So,
You have to. Okay, good.
all right, you got it. Yes, that is basically a performance we
That was a sort of sortie de résidence from when we first made the synthesizers. So you kind of have a more, you know,
So what we did in
DIY version of it.
what we did in Linz is that we had the similar performance with a different composition for the instrument, but we connected to a computer, and then people interfere on the effect. So we add granular synthesizers, and we add other sort of delays, and we sort of multiply the sound, and people acted on that level and changed the whole performance. So we were playing, but the results were going through the variation that people were proposed in the performance. So that's just a short extract of the video of Linz. I'm gonna have to play here.
Oh, this is all.
Yes, we can see you here. So what happened really is that the performance, the sound is pretty rough and raw. It's short circuit, and then so electrical is very electrical. But in the performing Linz, with the intervention of people from the internet, is that he became more. Doesn't stop. He became more wild because the sound were getting bigger, multiply, and then there were physical interaction. Weirdly, there were very strong physical interaction with the people away, and they were actively sort of manipulating the performance and making us more wild, and the sound getting wild. I don't know. It's really strange. They really enjoyed themselves because they could hear the performance and watch it, and so we had exchange with them, and the people really liked the way it was going wild, and they almost like provoke it.
And we also made available a pure data patch on the internet that people could download and manipulate the performance directly with the different effects. So it was that interaction. Yeah.
So people were interacting from all over the world.
Yeah.
Not from just.
No. And I even did a tutorial on how to use the patch.
After there were people on their phone, but I think physically in the space itself, I think people, I don't know. I don't think there were a lot of people with telephone there. I think people really want to enjoy a physical relations to. So the people with telephone might have been using from whatever location.
But the venue was really interesting because they actually had decided, as they couldn't have public, that they would fill it up with water. So initially,
Fill it up with what?
Water.
Water.
They flooded the audience
venue
space. So it looked beautiful with what we were doing, of course, but we were terrified at the beginning that this was going to be burning out the
short circuit plus water equal burning.
But in fact, it rather liked rather liked the water, and we were able to reach extreme octaves with it.
Yeah, because you play with moisture, so the water create a moisturized environment, perfect to play it.
Well, does that answer your question?
And I guess just one more question, but the instruments are connected to a PA, or do they have their own speakers on them?
No, they're going to a mixer.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions or comments? And also now we've, this is also supposed to be a community discussion forum. So we're also open to anyone raising any kind of questions about anything else they're doing in live online performance, or if anyone wants to talk about any project they're preparing or thinking about, or wondering how to resolve any aspects of it. So this forum is also for that, and everyone here is a participant in some way. Anyways, most people I see have participated in some way. So please don't be shy. And back many years ago, I was part of a it was in the beginning of the days of the internet, and in Montreal we formed a women's media and technology collective, because we thought that that women should get on the internet. It shouldn't be another technology that that men take over. And so we had these salons, and we had this motto, which and it was called Studio XX, and it was no question is too stupid for Studio XX.
Yes.
We played there.
Yeah, we play Gazzo in Studio XX.
Yeah. So so no question is too stupid for this this community discussion forum, I would say.
Actually, I had a question. We're actually getting a lot of artists who want to have the online participation. Is my microphone working okay? You can hear it? So can you go over again how you got the online participation with the jellyfish? Did you say that you sent everyone a PD patch and told them how to do it?
So we made a PD patch that was that you didn't need to do anything except for use as a player. You didn't need to edit it or do anything. It was plug and play. So, but for those that were interested in how the patch worked, they could obviously go under the hood. But so that was downloadable to anybody who wanted to. But at the same time, I was teaching assistant at Cyprus University of Technology for a course on interactive media. So we made all the students learn Pure Data and participate if they wanted to the performance. And I also, because I was doing that, I made a tutorial on how to use the patch, which was available for everyone to use or see if they wanted to, if they needed any help with it.
But then we thought that was not enough because people will, the audience, some part of the audience will think, oh, I don't know Pure Data or Max or whatever. So they won't jump into it because they say, oh, it's not for me. And so we thought, okay, we need to develop a telephone app that everyone could use it. Very simple, one button and interact that way.
On apps.
Yes. So we also developed that app, and we also continuously thinking about developing JavaScript and internet-based connection. So we're actually working on development at the moment to have a web-based app where people could do the same thing. So to bypass the PD patch psychological aspect of I don't know how to do it. But the app itself with PD is like one button. It's the same. So, but
there was more parameters on
yeah,
the
maybe there were more parameters. But yes, so there is different way you could involve audiences with development from PD patch to web-based interactions and telephone apps.
But people are more inclined to download a telephone app because they expect it to be friendly and easy and instant. Whereas Pure Data sounds like learning coding. So.
And is there any time frame on that? Or where can I point people if they're really interested in having this online interaction with their artwork?
Well, that was made for that performance, so it probably
actually right now we made an installation that everyone could experience. We didn't talk about this. Okay, we got this venue that we run here in Nantes called Platform Intermedia. It's the young brother and sister of Experimental Intermedia or kids.
But it's much fancier than our space.
they're not that old.
Philly is. And so we can't open it, of course. So all the exhibition and performances can't happen. So we decided for early January to start an installation called The Very Sad Artistic Void. It's a translation. In French, it's Le Vide Artistique, which is a work with the triste, sad, and artistic. Sad because, of course, we can't open the venue to any public. So what's happening is that we create a very simple random sound system that people could trigger and then play the space. So they have this PD patch, and you could show. It's actually on YouTube. Yeah, you go on. So people could see the space. Right now it would be black because it's dark, but basically they click on the PD patch or the sound system, and then they will play a huge big sound in the space itself. And then right now it's all black, it's all pitch black. But if you go when it's daylight,
you haven't shared it.
Yeah, she will share it.
And do they get feedback? Do they hear what they just
you will.
Yeah,
activated?
There's the latency.
Share with the. So basically, right now you could hear a very light sound.
You can't see anything.
it's dark because the space is actually pitch black, and we think they turn off the light in the street. It's really odd because usually you could see the light. And
There's the instructions here on how to download it, the Pure Data, and play it in English and French.
Why don't you put a link to that in the chat?
so I'm gonna play it from a PD patch.
How do I do the chat?
You go on Apple. Are we on the chat? Is there? I have to stop.
On the bottom, you have a little
I don't have anything.
straight below, straight down. Oh, on. Oh,
I'll do it after.
I guess you have to stop sharing to get into the chat, maybe.
Yeah. Anyway, this installation was meant to stop last week, but then no, it's okay. It's okay. It's better to experience that day because you could see the space. Anyway, so that's basically we run the venue. People could play the venue itself, the void, the silence of the venue and the room with a random sounds that we play into it. Right. That's an experience, for example, of how people could interact with a closed venue. And
So, Jenny, can you put the link in the chat?
Yeah.
And we have a question from Ellen Perlman asking what the name of the app is. Maybe I don't know which app she means now. Ellen, are you there? Which app are you asking about?
Must be the telephone app.
Or probably the telephone app.
Well, there's no
downloadable on Apple.
There's no name for the app itself, but because it's related to the art project itself, is not. We haven't for this installation here called the Void, the Veriside Void. We didn't finalize the fun app, so we're working more on the web-based browser apps, but it takes times, in the same times.
But the phone apps is quite difficult because if you're connecting to an installation or a venue, you need to get through the security of that internet in that place with the phone apps in order to make it link up. So it can be quite complicated. Funny, when we made the app, it was for the venue in Austria.
Funny thing is that we've been playing with this the space, and sometimes there's security people coming up, and then there's blasts randomly made by people, and so we can hear him. The space is like, "Fuck! What is this shit?" And then it's because they don't know it because it's silence, and suddenly like there's people clicking, and it's like in the space, and it's really funny to hear them like getting really angry about what the hell is this, happening in this venue where nothing happening.
They don't call you then to say we think that there's a break-in. No,
I think they're used to weird stuff, and so sometimes we clash because they're just under, and then they got crazy about some performances or infrasounds shaking the building and things. So I think they're just like those guys, So.
And just out of curiosity, is it the two of you who do all the programming, or do you have like a whole team in Nantes or international, or how does that work?
I would have to say that the majority of the Pure Data programming is done by Julien, but that's true. But when we're working on a project together in Apo, it can include everybody, including like internships and other people that will get involved. For example, the telephone apps, a large part of it was worked out by one of our interns that we had.
Art students, yeah.
Art student intern that we had over the confinement.
He was doing his internship during confinement, so he had to come back and do it again. It's weird time for students and
So there's a lot of collaboration and including people in working some of this stuff out on the projects.
May I? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thanks, Carol and Catherine, for putting this together, and nice to meet Jenny and Julian. I'm Peter, and I'm part of a group called Nyobs, a music group. And one of the people, John Schwartz, works for this group called Artery, which during pre-COVID times was about connecting musicians for live performances in either people's apartments or, you know, on the street or just in varying places other than a concert hall or some more prescribed venue. They're currently working on an app called, or I think it's an app called Bramble, which I've only had the most precursory kind of walk through it, but it's about creating, you know, virtual architecture where you can present concerts essentially. And I was just wondering if that was anything, since you seem to work mostly with, you know, actual physical spaces, whether this is something that you've been experiencing or have any interest in, or any remarks about creating virtual spaces where people are, I mean, it's similar to what we're doing here with Zoom, but it's much more of like a 3D space.
So yeah, actually, this is a very interesting question because recently we've been working with Hub Mozilla,
With the Pixel Festival.
With Pixel Festival, maybe you've seen it. They've done a good job on creating a virtual 3D world. But very interestingly, in early 2000, when we started streaming, we thought that we wanted to do the 3D world at that time, which of course was really hard. And then there were some experience. So we attempt to try to create some sort of interaction, net art and 3D world, but we kind of fail because it asks a lot of resources in terms of servers. Ask also the audience is not there. We're not there yet. We had some audience for the sound. No, and then after there were Second Life, and then there were Second Life, and there were the whole performance. What you call it? She was doing a lot of performance on the internet. You know, they're called them. Yeah, well, Second Life was another place, but it was frustrating, I think, for a lot of artists.
No, I don't know. Second Life created entire university courses.
Yes. Yeah, it's true, but I think
very old. The Second Life is something that's
okay.
I don't know if people are still in there.
Hub Mozilla is very promising. It's very interesting because
Mozilla Hubs.
Mozilla Hub, because you could connect. Also, you could make your own object in Blender or any 3D apps
or whatever you want, and mostly just can convert them into forms that will import into Mozilla Hubs. And so they're kind of interesting for that.
Yeah, and you could do gallery installations, performances, all the web stuff. You could put it in there and create your whole world. And so it's very interesting to explore. Pixel Festival have been exploring it a lot, and we've been.
Mozilla Hub is just like Mozilla and then Hub HUB, or
yes.
Yeah, you'll find it. There's like a whole, and actually, Ars Electronica this year they did something called something gardens, some gardens.
It was Kepler Gardens.
Kepler Gardens, and many of those were built in Mozilla Hubs of various kinds. So there's quite a lot you can explore what people have done with the architecture and stuff there to see what the possibilities are. But it's quite simple, and what's good about it is it's hosted online on Mozilla, so it's not you that's having to use all the CPU of your computer to get it going.
They still take resources. Still quite asking a lot of your browser. But I think,
and it works with the VR headsets, but we've never tried that. It also works on the screen.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the attendants?
I just had one, and that was, and only because we have a mutual, I think you know Philippe Comtesse, who started in Nantes the what we call here in New York Materials for the Arts, and I just was kind of excited when I saw that you two were from Nantes and he was from Nantes, and he has performed and done an installation at our garden here in New York that Catherine has also been a part of. And so I was just interested in the conversation because of the connection with Nantes.
That's good.
He lives in Canada now. Huh?
What's that?
He lives in Canada now, or
No, he lives in Nantes. He's running that artist materials.
yes, I see.
That is, it's like, you know, secondhand furniture and fabric.
Station
Station
service.
service.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you see him, say hello.
Yeah. No.
I was hoping, I told him about it and hoping that I might see him here. But
We know a few people working there actually.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great for the community
Yeah.
because they're taking recycling material from exhibitions and so on, and then artists could go there and reuse this material from museums or places like that to make their own installation. So it's like a transfer from a big institution to anyone with artists with no money.
right, no, it's really, it's essential for us as an arts organization to have here in New York that same resource. And when Philippe was here, he visited what's called, you know, it's called Materials for the Arts, and they have a huge warehouse. So he was inspired, and it's just wonderful.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's all. Just thanks again for presenting this, Carol and Catherine. And nice to meet new people.
Yeah, thanks, Peter.
Take care.
Maybe now is a good time to talk about our upcoming. We're going to do these events every 2 weeks. And I noticed in the chat, someone was interested in Sarah Weaver. And I think Sarah's on our list. Isn't she, Catherine?
Sarah's the next guest. So on February 14th, Valentine's Day. And yeah, Sarah has been working in network art for over 15 years, and she's a composer, and she's been composing for online ensembles over networks for 15 years. And she's really studied closely the question of the transmission of sound over the internet. So actually she started out with you know, institutional university, really high speed networks. And so now she is working, and she's working with the development team at Stanford with the people developing Jack Trip, which is reputed to be either the best or one of the best audio transmission systems, because it routes the audio through a proprietary server, and it's also free and open source. And so
it's not, you know, because we know the Jack Trip for many years, and we haven't used it for a very simple reason. Is most of people didn't have the bandwidth for it, but maybe it might change now.
No, yeah, they've made a lot of progress. Apparently they've been like progressing at lightning speed since the pandemic, because there was a need and a demand. So so anyone interested in sound, or especially those interested in sound, should come in 2 weeks to hear Sarah and what she has to say about sound. And she also has developed like her own approaches to ensemble music over the internet. So, and she has now this virtual venue called NowNet Arts virtual venue, and she has the NowNet Art Ensemble, and she does the NowNet Arts Network Art Conference every year and the NowNet Arts Festival. So she's a all-around network art person. And I don't know, maybe if nobody else has any questions or comments or announcements, maybe we can ask Julian and Jenny if they want to tell us anything else before we wrap up, or even tell us about something else that's relevant to this forum that you forgot to talk about.
Yes, we do have something to warm you up in this difficult time. We had I think everyone is fed up with this continuous lockdown and suffering and experience. Here in France, we are also fed up because most of the shopping mall and supermarket and all the shops are open, and sometimes in a very more dangerous way than any kind of venue that could have a sanitary systems in place, or museums or galleries. So yesterday, we decided that the community will create a souk, which is a market in Arabic, where the artists will sell their CDs, their vinyls, their prints, their T-shirts, whatever they do, and then we will include performances and concerts. And so we open
Clandestine.
a clandestine
In the market.
in a market way, so people could come and see and buy things like they do in any kind of big supermarket and shopping malls, but we will be able to perform and do projects. So it was really fun. So we played 2 gigs with Jenny, and then it was really great.
But wait, this is a physical place or it's a virtual?
No. It's no virtual. It's just to
So
say.
there's been a lot of problems in France because, in fact, they have not been controlling anything with the commerce. So if you go shopping, thousands of people, no social distancing, no problem. But to open the cultural venues with distancing in place and sanitary stuff in place is completely forbidden. So you're not allowed to do anything. So the cultural scene has been completely on its knees for a long time, but also angry seeing the way that the shopping malls are allowed to do this. And then on top of it, the shopping malls start to say, oh, and now we're going to collaborate with the museums to show art in our shopping malls. So,
Yeah.
which we found quite disgusting. So there's been protests about it.
You know, France is very known for its protests.
Last week. And the whole of the culture department of Nantes municipality also came to that protest. And then on Saturday, we opened as a market to try and deviate the rules.
So it was a physical venue.
But simultaneously, all the theatres decided that they were going to open and allow the public in for 1 hour on Saturday. So there was a kind of a big movement on the arts sector to try and put pressure on the government to find some ways to allow us to open in limited conditions, but in some kind of conditions.
But this space that wasn't at Plateforme Intermédiaire, it was.
No, it was Les Ateliers de Beach. You know, this is another venue we're part of. It's community-based run venues. And there were a lot of people coming in. We had to limit the amount of people, so people were queuing. But it was interesting because we talk a lot about the virtual venues, and then we're trying to find the alternative. And then for us, that we also like the medium itself. For me, for us, the internet is a medium in itself, and so is continuously working on this before and after. But what I mean also is that we should not forget, and I think it's going to reinvent other practices, maybe more wild practices in the streets, in different urban conditions, but maybe reopening venues and trying to find strategy to reopen venues that are allowed somehow, but the culture everywhere is being run down as not something very important, except in Spain. Apparently it's good. And so it's also how to exchange about strategy to allow the reopening of cultural spaces. I think it's something that should be also just say to, you know.
And yesterday it was an amazing ambience in the space, because people really also looking to reconnect with the culture, with the performance and with the art, because all they have is shopping and home and TV. So, but a lot of those won't connect with the internet necessarily.
No, there's a lot of this audience. I don't think most of them didn't really connect with any of the virtual performance we're doing, and that is something that is it's thing to thought, or is matter to, is, you know, is I think this is not connected yet. What we're doing here and certain audience, I think that it's not matching yet. I don't know why.
I think it's because people are working from home, they're working online, and I think after a certain amount of time working on a computer, you need to look elsewhere.
No, but I think that you know, that there's going to be a before and an after the pandemic. And I think after the pandemic, I think a lot of things are coming in, and even like Phil, who was so, I mean, he was like, really, if we have to do a virtual series. And, you know, I mean, he discovered another side of it. So we recorded all the concerts and put them online. And we've had so much feedback of people writing from all over the world and saying like, wow, this is amazing. I finally get to see an experimental intermedia season, or a concert series, or when Phil did his 6-hour solstice concert, people said, wow, I finally get to see it. So it's not ideal, but there's sides to it. Then other things I'm thinking of, like you were talking about when you did the, what's it called, the percussion festival, and how people could see details. You know, maybe it's going to make people think about even just having a visual background of like playing on a stage and having like a really close up on their drumsticks or something, you know. Maybe there'll be more of that, or some other way. They'll have a camera and you could sit on your phone and look at the zoom in and whatever. I think that it's going to open up to a lot of hybrid practices, just because we've had to deal with it, and now people have gotten used to them. And another thing I keep saying a lot, I give this example a lot, is I think that it's making you know, remote presence a very acceptable thing. And I give the example of it wasn't so long ago, like 4 years ago, Phil had a concert somewhere in Florida, and then he had like heart problems, and he went to see the cardiologist, and the cardiologist said, well, I don't think you should go anywhere. I don't think you should fly unless you pass this test. And I don't remember whether he couldn't get the test right away or they had to wait for a result. And the cardiologist said, like, you no go, you know, red light. And you know, if you know Phil's music concerts, he plays pre-recorded tunes and pre-recorded films. And so he suggested that I go and that I set everything up, because I know how it should be set up, and that the concert could take place anyway. And immediately, like the sponsor of this concert, who was the guy paying for the venue, he said, no way, if the composer isn't coming. So they canceled it like a few days before, which I'm sure now people are so used to virtual and stuff. I'm sure now it would be totally okay that they would have Phil over Zoom or over Skype, like introduce it, and then they do the concert, and then they would have a hangout with Phil, maybe people in the actual space. But then, like, for this guy, it seemed like unthinkable, and like he was even offended, you know. So I think stuff like this, and so it's gonna, you know, for some people, for people who can't travel, you know, because of health. I don't know, they have small kids. For people who are busy, I think it's going to be much more acceptable for, I don't know, people invited to conferences who can't leave because, I don't know, they have a teaching appointment to be a keynote speaker somewhere across the world. So I think it's going to change the way things work.
I mean, it seems to me that, I mean, you don't really have anything new here as far as, I mean, you could always have recorded an experimental intermediate concert and broadcast it, you know. So really the new thing here is the social space that you're creating via these live situations. You know, otherwise it's just really, you're seeing something and nobody would know. I mean, nobody would know if this was pre-recorded, you know, whatever. So I think that part to me is really interesting, how this kind of social space evolves, and how the actual thing that people are creating becomes more interactive and more involving of the audience in a way that a live performance does but doesn't, you know, or the different way that that audience interaction evolves in this kind of virtual space. So, you know, because really, I mean, what was stopping you from broadcasting XI concerts before?
Well, we didn't feel
You
the
didn't.
need, and we didn't know people all over the world would be so interested. But like you came to some of our concerts, Michael, didn't you? So I know that. No, okay. So but like what we did, people have loved that we had a chat during the concert.
Well, that's what I mean, like this interact, this
and the virtual hangout. We had a virtual hangout in Zoom after. So like we really thought about how to make it as much social, in-person social as possible. So
but you know, it's right. You're right, Michael. And this is why we've been doing the chat thing very all the way from the beginning. Because if you don't have these interactions, you're right. We don't know if it's live, if it's recorded. But as soon as we put the chat, we had the interaction with the audience really early days, and it was really interesting because they could discuss with the artist and say, but why you have done this, or I like what you've done, or they commented, and then the artist could read the comment. They're not always a nice comment, but that's interesting. You know, it's like if you go to the bar after your concert and you discuss with the audience, and this is similar. And I would like to give another example. Also, in 2006, I was touring with a musician from South America, and in Schengen, he could not get to Poland, and because they were not yet in the Schengen area. And so I remember we were invited to the Audio Art Festival. You might know it. It's a very important festival in Poland, and I had a similar experience. So we arrived to the airport, and they refused to this person to get in the plane. And so I decided not to go to the festival without him, and go back to Nantes with the person. And I proposed to the festival organizer to stream our performance live for the festival. It was in 2006, so they were like, "Why you want to do this?" And so I had a big, strong discussion with the organizer on a similar scale, saying, "Look, it's important. The guy come from South America, and then we're touring, and they refuse this paper. There's a political stance also to have it. You know, in Schengen, you know, there's a context. Asylum seekers, now we call refugees, and so we did the concert. He accepted it, but he didn't pay us, and so it not only didn't pay us, but I think he didn't really enjoy, and I think he blanked us for many years. So we never were invited after that.
Well, the thing is, you're going to have to start paying the audience because they're participating.
Yeah.
One thing about the form, though, of our concerts was very, very different than our documentation of live concerts here. So what actually was presented was much more complex than if we had broadcast what we normally did as live documentation.
In what way was it more complex?
They made really an event which was essentially filmed live. So they weren't presenting something on a stage as musicians, for instance, but they were doing a much more complex with different visual elements and things like that. So it was quite a different experience than a live concert was normally here.
You mean they use, and this is where it's interesting, did they use the streaming aspect and the live streaming as a medium to experiment with, rather
Exactly.
Exactly.
than just
And at least half of them weren't live, but they still,
think about
I
it.
would say they composed their concerts in relation to the possibilities of the web, or
Mhm.
what they're, they all thought about
I
that
suppose-
most people would look at it on their laptops. And
I suppose though, if it's streamed in a live durational time, where there's the interaction of the conversations before and after and the chat,
yeah,
it's more like presenting an artwork or a piece live in a live situation,
Yeah,
as opposed to a pre-recorded video that is just played as and when a person wants to.
no, exactly. I mean, yeah. So the ones who pre-recorded, there was the chat going on. So then, of course, the chat was not with the actual, or whatever. The chat couldn't have any bearing on the performance. But and I mean, I noticed that a lot of the chat is like, oh hey Julian, you're there. Where are you? Oh, I'm in Berlin. And it doesn't matter. It still gives people a social context.
There's still people commenting. I mean, I've seen, especially in a lockdown, it was really interesting, the performance every week on YouTube, because we had different chats, and on YouTube people seems to comment more on Facebook. It's a sort of people comment anything. It's really, they do that in general, but it could influence the performance, and it did for me, and I think for some other, to see comments while you're playing, and then you're playing, except if you're playing and you don't see anything, it's a different thing. But if you play and you're taking care also of the network, it could really influence your performance, because you could read people if they don't just say hi. So you could also try to force this discussion, animate it. And you could have people commenting and say, oh, this is great. Oh, what's going on with the sound? Oh, it's like breaking. Oh, I don't know. This is like, and then suddenly you read the comment and you're playing and you're like, what? It's like, what this guy is saying. And then suddenly you will react or not, or you will say, but it could create, if you open to it, that's join what Michael say, if you open to it, you could change the parameter of your performance.
As you would in a live situation.
Yeah, imagine you have people who are commenting during your concert.
Well, they don't comment, but you sometimes read or feel.
Yes, but you interpret what they say.
I hope they don't comment.
Yeah, but imagine you have people commenting while you're playing, and they go on stage and say, "Dude, that's great! What you're doing, I love it. Thanks." Or this is too loud. I mean, sometimes people do. It's actually they do.
Yeah, some people, they do come on stage, but they yell or they clap or they go, "Long, your solo is long enough. Come on, get on with it." Or
it's true. No, it's true. But it's
simply clap after your solo. Other than that.
Yeah.
But have you had to deal with any trolls or any people really disrupting your festivals? Things that have been really,
I think the worst thing we had to deal with actually was playing a performance that we prepared a lot. That was a network performance. It was Chaos Lab performance with a lot of interactive and mixed video input as well from different people playing and different music. And the whole thing was meant to be a streaming of the visual space, not of people playing computers.
Oh yeah, that just happened recently.
And,
that's terrible. Oh yeah, absolutely.
And the festival had decided to go online entirely and employ somebody to manage a kind of TV production in a kind of quite amateurish kind of way. And so the person that was in the space physically there also playing with us became the focus of the person deciding what should be streamed, which was basically a guy sat at a computer
with a mask.
And not all the hard work of the visuals that were interacting with each other that we had created for the streaming performance.
Yeah, so you had 10 musicians playing, an experimental visual with 2 or 3 visual artists experimenting visuals, and the guy that were mixing the live was showing this guy in a space alone from this
with a white background.
And we were telling him, it was we were playing for a few days with this group, and then this was an half an hour performance on the festival. And then we were saying, what are you doing? This is not what we've been working on this before.
Julian trolled the chat.
So I trolled the chat, like say, this is shit, man. Fuck, stop this shit, man. That's not the performance. And then I troll, and then the guy's like, and keep doing it. And at some point, they had to do a mediation. Someone have to get on the festival, say, okay, we're changing it. And the guy was keep mixing the guy, and we're like, oh, come on, this is like terrible.
I guess the thing that we felt was that the aesthetic proposition that we were giving to the festival was not being taken into consideration properly.
It just sounds like a bad OBS production.
Yeah. Otherwise, troll and chat. Yeah, you always have people. It's mainly actually sometimes people we know. You know, it's people we know and pseudo that will come and say some crappy things. You know, and say, "Oh, we know you, your stuff." You know, and you say, "Hey, dude, I know you." Like, you know.
So
Not so much, in fact. No.
So people, it's heartwarming that you're all still here, but it has been 2 hours. So maybe you could let Carol and me have a break. And it is a Sunday, and check on our recording. Oh yeah, and you too. It's your bedtime, I'm sure. The kids are sleeping?
I hope so.
Yeah, now they're sleeping. Yeah.
So, mark your calendars for 2 weeks from tonight. I guess that's Valentine's Day. Is that true? So we hope to see you all again. We'll probably do this through April. We've got a few more artists lined up to share their experiences. It's been really great to hear how you guys have been producing these things and to see the samples that you've brought to the event. So it's been very, very informative. Thanks.
Yes, Jenny and Julian, thank you so much. That was an awesome performance.
Yes, thank you both, because I think it's a really important subject to carry on discussing and finding out what everybody's doing in this way.
It's good you're doing this. Yeah, it's great.
And everyone else, so stay tuned. So yeah, we probably go till the end of April, and then we'll see if there's an overwhelming demand. We'll continue, maybe at the same day or different days. We'll see. But for now, we definitely have a lineup of guests for several weeks for a couple of months to come.
And if you want to be on the HarvestWorks newsletter list, that's pretty much where you'll hear about in more depth, where you'll hear about the next event and some of our other events that we're doing over the course of the spring. So thanks for coming.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.